Okay, the next thing that we're going to talk about is how do you choose the right key blank so that you can duplicate a customer's key. Um, First, we're going to talk about one of probably the easiest ones and the most obvious is visual identification. And it sort of comes in two parts. The visual identification is really looking at a key, and you'll notice that most of the original keys, so these are like aftermarket keys, meaning that a company makes keys for different brands of key manufacturers. And so this one, it doesn't have their name on it, but this is from Ilco, which is a company that produces a bunch of key blanks. And what they'll do is they will copy the shape of the original key. So remember what we talked about, the head right here will look similar. It's not always the case. I would say 85-90% of the times that is the case, but it could be tricky because sometimes they'll have a blade that's the same, but the head portion is different. So you have to be careful about that, and you always want to double check. Another thing, we didn't talk about this in key anatomy, but I want to explain one other important part of a key, or naming of a key. This right here is called the key profile. And you'll know why that's pretty important. But you know, when you're inspecting a key blank to see if it's the right key that you're going to use to duplicate, you want to make sure the key profile is the same. And then obviously, of course, the most important thing is when you're duplicating a key, the blade portion is the most important. If the blade itself is the same as the key that you're trying to cut, then you can most likely cut the key out of it. What you have to look at is, you know, the thickness of the key. If the thickness is different, that can affect the key. If the length of this blade is different, that's going to be something else. If the profile is different, you know, you won't be able to cut it. But if the blade is exactly the same, but the head is different, it doesn't matter. You can still go ahead and cut that key with that key blank. But as far as visual identification goes, literally what it means is you look at the key, you see how the ridges are, you see how the head is, you see the length of the blade, and you're gonna find a key blank that looks like that. And most of the times, depending on how your setup is, you'll have a rack that displays all the key blanks. And so you could just sort of pick it out and then, you know, see what key looks like it, compare, contrast, and see if it looks the same. Over time, you'll get familiar with the most popular ones. And we talked about that, but you know, you'll get familiar with it. I would say about all the keys that we do, 80-90% of them are all, you know, falls into maybe 5 to 10 different types of keys. But you know, if you want to be more robust and have more options, you know, you have to have a lot of keys that cover the rest of the 20%, if that's your objective. So that's visual identification of a key. You want to just look to see if the blade is the same. You look at the length of the blade. You look at these grooves right here to see if they're the same on both sides. Super important, both sides. You want to see the you know, the shoulder. Does it have a shoulder on both sides? What helps is looking at the head of the key sometimes, but not always, because that could be tricky. Like I mentioned, this could be different from another key, but the blade can be the same. As long as the blade is the same, you can cut the key and it'll work. But most of the times the key will look the same from the head to the blade itself. So that's visual identification. You look at the customer's key and you go and you visually inspect your key blanks to see which one matches, and then you go ahead and cut the key. That's visual identification.